Pete Buttigieg went on the All In podcast, which are these businessmen, very wealthy from what I understand, and did a really great job. They're more MAGA. One of them, you can tell from his questions, is definitely more MAGA. And Buttigieg, as usual, handled it pretty darn well. So this first clip is fascinating. Let's just jump right into it.
Which subsidies? Can you name me a measure? Can you name a measure by which I'm asking you. I'm asking the politician. I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a line item breakdown in front of me. What I'm telling you is that it is not terribly contested. Like if anybody listening to this podcast feels like opening up a window and looking it up for themselves, just to figure out which one of us is right. It's not terribly contested that the majority of the benefit of TCJA and OBBA went to wealthy people. And it's definitely not contested, or I'd say generally not contested, that OBBA represents one of the largest transfers of wealth from lower income people to upper income people in global history.
How do you measure that?
You can measure it in terms of wealth before and after. You can measure it in terms of the incidence of the different forms of taxation. You can measure it in a total package that accounts for subsidy as well as benefit. I mean, any number of ways. But again, if you measure it a different way, I'd love to hear it, because I don't regard this as something that's deeply contested, but it sounds like you have a measurement in mind that's different, and I'd love to run with it and look it up so I can see where you're coming from.
We definitely cut corporate taxes and personal taxes because of TCJ. Yeah, mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that was significant.
And to be clear, again, because the Laffer curve turns out to be bullshit, we did not just grow our way out of the deficits that created. Right?
Let me ask you a question about the inner workings of the Democratic Party.
That's great. So then, whoop, I just got Buttigieg. Or what does Trump call him? Buttigieg? She got gagged. Gagged me. What? So, so great answer. There seemed to, by the All In guy, honestly, before I did this segment, I should have looked up their names. I really apologize. I'm not trying to be like, I don't know your name. I just happened to forget to do that beforehand. A lot of the stuff in the show today, I forgot. But one of the guy in the white sweater, I love that sweater. I really love that sweater, actually. And I need to find it. Look at it. That's so something I would wear. So he seemed very skeptical. Like, what are you talking about? Trump's economic policies benefiting the wealthy in this unprecedented way? Or what do you mean the One Big Beautiful Bill Act did that? And we've looked at the numbers now dozens of times, and it's just, I don't even, as Buttigieg put it, I don't know if it's that contested. I haven't seen alternative research on the combined effect. Now, sometimes they'll roll out this provision about reducing taxation on tips will benefit working class people this much. But combining the entire bill with all the changes to the social safety net, all the reductions in funding to Medicaid and to SNAP, and then the huge tax breaks for top 1%, I'm yet to see someone go, here's the analysis that proves it's not true that the combined effect is wealth going from the bottom to top. And you can tell that the All In guy was like, okay, well, moving on. What about Biden's debate performance? Have we thought of that yet? And then you have this. Please, as we continue through this, click the subscribe button. It's free, but it supports what we do every day here. Sometimes it's hard, but the best type of hard.
What I get confused, though, Pete, is like on the one hand, you're saying the government should set up these clear moonshot objectives that advance America for itself and relative to other countries. But then the other side is that if you do too well achieving those objectives, we want to go and take a bunch of that away from you. How do you reconcile that? And how do you think it impacts the motivations of young men and women who want to learn and excel and put themselves at risk, but also want to believe that if they put themselves at risk, and then they're rewarded, that they've earned those rewards?
Look, I love people being entrepreneurial, creating something, and doing well by it. I mean, that's
but to a certain
basic
point, right?
idea.
Only to a certain level, like beyond a certain point of entrepreneurial success.
If you create a monopoly, if you create a monopoly, I might not like it. If you hurt other people, I might not like it. If you concentrate power into your hands to an extreme extent, I might not like it, because it's just not American. But in general, if we're talking about taxation, I just want to make sure people who are really well off do their part to pay into a system that has helped them to thrive. Because that's what it takes for the next generation to do well. And that's what it took for all of us to do well.
Yeah. Let me address that in just a second. And I hate, y'all know me, sometimes I'm just on little stupid rabbit holes. But if you'll show this, Jaden, I cannot find an example through human history where a beard has done more for someone's charisma. He's always been so charismatic and a great communicator. But if you look on screen, podcast list, I'm showing without the beard. And then just quickly, would you go with me on this journey? What are we even talking about? Indeed, Jaden. So I wanted to know that. And I'm really not doing myself any favors on the front. I just talked about a sweater and someone's beard. Okay. So I am really upset with this talking point. Not that you couldn't take taxation too far. You could, obviously. If you tax everyone at 100%, what are we doing? Why would you work? Of course. But when you look at how we tax compared to a lot of other countries that are very capitalistically successful too, and who have great social safety nets, and things are fine, and they still have rich people there, and we're so below them, and we're the richest ever of all of them all the time first in the history of all of us. It's weird that the philosophical point gets made of like, well, why are you wanting to punish people for making money? When we're talking about, hey, number one, could we just go back to where we were under Obama? Like what were we, some socialist hellhole during Obama? I don't know why I'm saying his name like that today. And really, if we're going to go there, I just get really bored with those conversations of, so don't you agree that in a sense, by increasing taxes on the wealthiest tip top, which when he goes, well, then young men and women aren't going to, I think they'll still want to work hard and make money, even if 12 billionaires pay a little bit more. But okay. Because it ignores that kind of, well, cerebrally, and I've had this when I've been in interviews, like, what is the exact correct rate on this group, or what is, because it's more about looking at the state of wealth generation, and given the specific facts at hand now, what's the most appropriate thing for right now. It's not always the same. And if we're going to go there, though, we've gone through before we did today. This idea that taxation is a punishment, or the very wealthiest few paying a little more, means that people won't want to be innovative. Again, it completely ignores times in American history where the wealthiest top have paid way more, and we were economically exploding during that time. Mr. Sweater, address that point. Look back at previous times in American history, but okay. And it's a very easy philosophical point in response, which is, awesome. Yes, you made a bunch of money. That's awesome. And what helped you get there? Everything from the roads you were driving on, the commerce system that we've created because of investments in infrastructure and transportation, the school that you went to, the public safety that you had. Maybe one of your family members most likely had some service that they benefited from, whether it be healthcare or food benefits. All these little things, social programs that have helped to create jobs, create the environment that helped you even become wealthy. All of the intellectual property protections enforced by the government. It just goes on and on and on, created the system that you then can be successful in. So for you to turn around and go, oh, you must hate that I was successful because you want me to chip in more. While I think it's kind of a dumb discourse because we're not even talking about specific policy proposals and it's just kind of up here, we can sit there all we want and the response is just, as Buttigieg said, yeah, I'm super happy for you. I want you to do that. I want you to keep being passionate and innovative and all those things. America, yes! But you're going to also help fund that very system that allowed you to prosper for future people and for present people. That's it. Awesome. And it's better for you too. You don't want to walk around on the streets where income inequality is out of control. It gets real dangerous. You don't want to walk around the streets where people don't have purpose, where people aren't employed, where people are lost and drug addicted and homeless. You don't want to walk around on those streets. So for the sake of your community, your kids' community, it's better for everybody than this.
Do you think that there was censorship under the Biden administration for things like scientific truth? Let's just focus on COVID for a second and the backdoors that it seemed that the Biden administration had to places like Facebook and places like Twitter to just suppress scientific thought and debate, as you just talked about.
So this is an amazing example of some of the false equivalencies that I've seen thrown around out there. So yeah, I would acknowledge, I think a lot of folks would say that, it came really close to the stove some of the times when the administration was trying to make sure that bad information or misinformation wasn't being pushed into the kind of public health conversation, and was engaging social media companies that were trying to be responsible and do the right thing. And there might be moments that they got that wrong or went too far. But right now we're in a moment, right, where the president of the United States doesn't like being criticized by a comedian and has the head of the FCC, which regulates corporations that are trying to buy TV networks, go out and threaten them and say, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. I mean, that is a whole different level of censorship, not to mention just the way they've gone through like every government website, right, and deleted anything that could accidentally be a reference to climate change. So, I'm worried about the false equivalencies here. You could definitely say there were moments under the last administration or any administration where we could argue that having fidelity to free speech, you should have done this way instead of that way, or these edge cases should have been different. But I am nervous that anybody would equate a president trying to direct the destruction, not only of journalists, but of comedians that he doesn't like, with public health authorities in a public health emergency that killed 1 million Americans, doing their best to try to make sure that people got good public health information.
Brilliant. And I love that he acknowledged, because this is something when I've gone on shows to debate and I've brought up the attack of Trump on the First Amendment. And even before he became president, I was doing this and thinking of one specific setting where I was bringing up what he was saying he was going to do. It ended up all and more becoming the case. So, well, I guess. But the response is always, well, Biden did blank. And the first thing I grapple with is, but you're saying that was horrible. So I want to address what I think is wrong with your premise, but let's just assume it for a second. Anything you think Biden did to the First Amendment, okay, let's go there. How on earth does that then make you for when Trump does it? Wouldn't that make you the best person to be consistent on Trump being bad on the First Amendment? And then you have to take issue with the premise and the both sidesism or the false equivalencies that get trotted out, which is during a public health emergency, a scramble, more than 1 million people died, and a scramble to figure out, knowing that a big cause for that was people not taking the correct precautions because of stuff they were reading online, to requests of social media outlets through those back doors that the All-In guy referenced to enforce their own terms of service, to rein that in. To which some of those platforms said a bunch of times, nah, and the government did nothing. So that same backdoor, remember, Trump was utilizing too. He just wasn't super concerned with medical misinformation. He was concerned with Chrissy Teigen calling him a B-A-B. Was it Lil B? One of them. Pussy ass bitch. And that's what he wanted to get taken down. So communication between the government, as the courts have ruled on, and social media platforms is not a violation of the First Amendment. Them leveraging their government power to punish a platform for not doing what they want in quote unquote censorship would be, which is what Trump's doing with media outlets. So that's bringing that up makes me go, number one, okay, if you believe that, why the heck would you not be against it when Trump does even more egregious examples? And your premise is wrong. Doesn't mean there weren't things done wrong. Maybe there should have been more of a caution. Like he said, don't even get close to the stove or whatever the phrasing was. But in two key ways, it doesn't at all dispute how bad what Trump is doing in targeting protesters and targeting media outlets and literally bringing a criminal case against James Comey. You think it's because he lied under oath about, which I don't even think he did, but even if he did, lied under oath about a leak in relation to something that hurt Clinton? You think Trump really thought that, oh, we got to get him back in 2020? He said that thing and that actually ended up helping Clinton, that happened, but we need to hold him accountable now. Or do you think it's because James Comey was publicly speaking out against Trump? So that's an attack on the First Amendment. Then this.
Let me ask you a question about the inner workings of the Democratic Party. Can you explain to us the role of identity in Democratic politics?
Well, let's just say I would love for identity to play a less central role in the politics of our country and in the politics of my party. And not just because I might have been passed over for an opportunity, but just because I think it is.
Oh, I missed that. Oh! Shoot! He went there. What he's referencing is Kamala Harris said essentially she didn't pick him because she was worried that Americans wouldn't be able to stomach both the first black woman and other things, but also and a vice president who was gay. Wow. And then he responded by being like, I think, we shouldn't focus on such things, Kamala. And that's another reference to it. This is going to come up. I predicted it. Yes. This is going to be such a point.
And not.
It's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal. Even though I understand her reasoning, I do.
Just because I might have been passed over for an opportunity, but just because I think it has really dominated so many people's thinking in a way that makes it harder for us to build a message across identities. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think it makes sense to pretend that identity doesn't matter. I don't think it makes sense to pretend to be colorblind. I also don't think it makes sense to allow that to explain everything, which is one of the habits that's formed, I think, definitely on my party's far left, that made it harder for us to get through. Especially when you have a lot of people whose interests are shared. I'm thinking about the economic interest of poor people and low wealth people in this country, for example, who are black, white, and of every ethnicity and identity and gender, of course, who maybe didn't hear a unifying message that was speaking to them as a group, because it felt like my party was like a salad bar. Like, here's something for your group, and here's something for another group, and here's something for another group. And it just didn't add up into a story.
Yeah, and I do have to just say again, as a matter of fact, I followed Harris's campaign very closely, and she wasn't doing that. She wasn't doing like, so black people, this, gay people, this, white people, that. She tried to stay a lot away from identity because she knew that it could be weaponized against her, given all that stuff. And Trump was the one using identity way more in his whole DEI thing, interestingly. But the perception, and this is something, it drives me a little bit loco, because I'm not exactly sure what some Democrats are supposed to do when they will get accused of that, which is you're just doing identity politics, even when they try to stay a million miles away from it. So Harris, just think back to when she would get asked about the historic nature of if she won being the first female president and first all these other things, and of, she did this interview and they were asking like, what will you specifically do for black Americans? And she would run in the opposite direction. Oh, I'm not focused on my level of history, or I'm not focused on, I think my policies would be good for everybody. She would do that. But then she still got accused of, she was just obsessed with trans the whole time. When she would get asked about trans, it sounds like it's one person, Mr. Trans. And she would say, I don't know Mr. Trans. I've never spoken to Mr. Trans. No, she would just totally, actually, it would get a little uncomfortable, if I'm going to be honest, where there wouldn't be much of a clear message, because it would be like, I don't want to be on the record saying anything. And still she got accused of it. She was going around Liz Cheney being like, woo! And she still got accused of being too far left. So her main economic policies were like, hey, you have a small business? We will give you a bigger loan. And they still accused her of being too far left. It's like, how we already have a enhanced child tax credit? What if we enhanced it a little more? And she still got accused. So I don't take that super seriously with her, but she was branded maybe because of previous thing. But there is a general perception about the Democratic Party that's too identity obsessed or culture war obsessed. And again, it's just irritating that even the ones who try not to do that get accused of it. But maybe there needs to be a bigger picture. Even the activists need to sync more with a strong economic message that doesn't involve itself too much in the culture wars and seeks to unite around those common shared economic problems, as opposed to this identity warfare that the right is stoking as much as they possibly can. That's a good goal. And the right will still accuse you of caring way too much about culture wars. So, I don't know. Don't know how you deal with that. Just do what Trump did. I know nothing about Project 2025. What is gay marriage? I've never heard of it.